Jeffrey, I'm so glad that you could come today and tell us a lot, or as much as you can, about the Ruth Bader Ginsburg musical tribute coming up on October 7th. When I saw the group form, I was like, oh, there's Jeffrey, he's at it again. He's got a composer and they're creating some great music that is topical and of the moment and of the artists and people involved. So I got very excited, and when you reached out to me, I was in the middle of a hurricane, but I was like, nope, we got to do this because this is a very special concert, and I think people need to be aware of it.
I think, you know, somebody said to me, oh, you're 60, what does that feel like? I said, it's the same. Well, it is and it isn't. Your spirit stays young, but your wisdom ages. You know, things that are supposed to age and die do. Physical does. But spirit can always grow. I find myself, as I get older, thinking perhaps the greatest story and the greatest movie ever is The Wizard of Oz. Everything is in it. There are frauds behind curtains. There are wicked witches out to get you for what they want. There are people who are seeking wisdom, people seeking to reveal their heart, people who want to have more courage. There are people always looking for something that they think is different or better than what they have, but then in the end, they always go home. And one of the most powerful lines, of course, I always say to my students, follow your yellow brick road. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to imitate somebody else. And the greatest line in that movie is when, toward the end, they ask Glinda, well, why didn't you tell her? And Glinda says, she wouldn't have believed me. She had to learn it for herself. What a life lesson that line is. And I only come to realize, you're a kid, you watch it. Okay, it's a movie, you're scared of the witch. You never know what's around the yellow brick road, what you're going to find, or who's going to put a roadblock in front of you. And the lesson to be learned during COVID and feeling like we're all lab experiments. We're put in a cage and we're having to figure out how to deal with that physically and emotionally and live life. And what do we do with that life while we have it, and how to survive it through it, how to be smart. What did I do? Yeah, I wore a mask because it doesn't matter what you feel religiously or politically, but I wore it because it kept my mouth away from others and others away from me, and everything's covered. So the chances of me having anything come into openings of this physical thing were reduced. So it was just a matter of common sense. It wasn't to say, well, I'm fine, that's all. It's just common sense. So I did that. How do I prevent myself and my family from falling apart? And how do I incorporate music into this? And of course, during the COVID year, my father-in-law passed away. And 3 months later, to the date, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. They knew each other in Brooklyn when they were younger, but how did that affect me? So is there really some connection? I mean, I felt very strongly about who she was, just because there was a little connection there. And her best friends and the best friends with my father-in-law, there was a little bit of a connection there, but it was beyond that. It was a basic animal instinct that I grabbed onto that was to me, epitomized her life and legacy as basic human rights and survival. And what you take with that, to the right, to the left, to the middle, what you take with that is yours. But these are the things I believe in, that I feel all people have a right to believe in and to do. And that's what she did. And I just felt there was something more important than even her own existence about that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to figure out how to translate that into music. I had written some waltzes of hope after the first few weeks being at home. And I never compose, I really don't. The last time was when I wrote some arrangements of songs and Christmas music and choral things and things of that nature, but original piano music was never really my thing. And I wrote these waltzes during isolation, and they were just, it was music that spoke to me. And so I wrote them March and April of 2020, and then nothing. Then I was playing concerts at home every week. And then my father-in-law got sick and he passed away. And that was June 18, 2020. 3 months later, I was actually teaching online a lot also, teaching for the Sonata Piano Camp run by Polly Vanderlinde in Vermont. Whoever doesn't know about that, find out about it. If you love playing piano, it is a 50-year-old plus institution that joins people across the country. And it really was a lifesaver for me as a musician, a pianist, a teacher, and financially too. And everybody went online. She turned the camp into a virtual reality. It was incredible.
That's really
incredible.
Cool.
So I taught for Brooklyn College, as I have for the last 20 plus years, online. Fine. I mean, it wasn't new to me to teach online. I was teaching on Skype in 2007. It wasn't unusual for me to play concerts online from my home because I started the first classical live stream concerts back in '97. So it was ahead of its time, and here it is, part of our time. It was so normal to me, but it was so much of a new thing for people. I'm like, this isn't new. This is, embrace it. I'm glad we have you. We're lucky to have the technology to still learn and share and survive. And by the time Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away in September last year, September 18, 3 months after my father-in-law, strange. I don't know, it's just everybody felt a little bit of a hole in the heart.
Yeah.
And by the beginning of October, I had an idea similar to when Aaron Copland composed a Lincoln Portrait, honoring an American legendary historic figure, and put it to music with narration. My first thought was narration and music with piano as kind of like a little quasi piano concertino with orchestra and voice.
Nice.
And I went to Ellen Taaffe Zwilich, who I've known for over 20 years. She wrote the Millennium Fantasy for me, which was the first largest group of orchestras to commission a new piano concerto, actually any concerto at that time. And alongside another composer, unbeknownst to each other, he was doing something of his own of a concerto, and he got a lot of orchestras together too. So that was the trend. I started that and he was doing it. It was kind of cool. And then 10 years later, Ellen wrote The Shadows for piano and orchestra for me, which shadowed Katrina and other things. It's all about when immigration started to be an issue. And I said, write something about people who leave their homelands and take their homeland rites, rituals, and traditions to the new lands. And Louisiana Philharmonic jumped on board to be the world premiere. I said, Ellen, this is perfect. It's New Orleans. It's French. You do what you wish. And that was after Katrina, the hurricane. So a lot of people related to that. So Shadows is a wonderful piece. What makes it even greater is that I'm playing it in a new arrangement in a couple of weeks in Idaho with the Idaho State Civic Symphony. We were supposed to do Grieg. They said, too big, can't do it this year. I said, I've got a piece for you. And Ellen last year took 4 of her different concertos, this being one of them, The Shadows, and took the big piece and made it into a chamber work. Wow. So it's Shadows for piano and 7 players. It's incredible. Will be the premiere. But Shadows in this way could be shadows of COVID. It could be shadows of anything. That to me is what makes this piece remarkable, is that it can reflect whatever is happening in 10 years from now. Could be something different. So I said to Ellen last October, I'd like to maybe commission this piece. I don't know how I'm going to raise the money during this year to do it, but ended up that I did through sponsors, donors, foundations, and the Dallas Symphony. And that's why we're doing the premiere in Dallas on October 7, alongside with the premiere of one of my pieces, Ruth. I'll get to that. And Ellen said, I got goosebumps. I really like this idea. I said, this is going to be the first time a piece is written. I don't want it to be like the Copeland, but we're honoring a female legendary historic figure now and what she stood for.
Legendary.
And she says, I love this. And she brought a poet on board. And she says, well, who do you have in mind to do the, at first we thought narration, and it evolved into being no narration, but all singing. I said, I'm thinking of people. And I started writing to friends. I said, do you know Michelle Obama? Do you know this one? Do you know? I mean, I was reaching for another galaxy.
Right.
But I brought the project. I had a few hurdles to go through with family. And Jim Ginsburg, Justice Ginsburg's son, who runs a classical record label, he says, you don't really need our permission for this, but do go to the Supreme Court. I'm going to send you to the office where my mother was, and the judicial assistants are going to guide you through this, because you just need to have, if you use any specific court-owned photos, you need to have written permission and why they're being used. And sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they won't. So he was very helpful with this. And his wife, Patrice, is a singer, and they also have music dedicated to his mother that Patrice recorded and performed. It's quite remarkable. Anyway, I said to him, this is all through emails. We never spoke. I only spoke to him once when I met him a few years ago in Evanston, when I was playing at the Evanston Symphony. And I asked him, who do you suggest? I mean, this is music about his mom. And I felt it was appropriate and respectful to ask him, honestly, and him being in the music field. And he says, I can't imagine anyone but Denyce Graves, because Denyce was my mom's favorite singer, and she sang at his mom's memorial in Washington. And I went to her website, which, this is funny. I went to her website and wrote to her there, and I got a lovely email the next morning from Andre, her older brother. I thought, oh my gosh, Andre, of course that's her brother. I mean, he works for her, does a lot of work with her. He's an incredible guy. And he wrote back, and I thought, oh, I feel so silly that I didn't connect the dots, but it was such a stressful year. And sometimes the dots go here and there, and you don't see it.
Oh,
and so he just let me talk to her. Within a day, Denyce wrote to me and was so nice through Andre. It took a while till she felt comfortable enough to say, here's my email. I'm not going to bother you. I'm not going to stalk you, I promise, except for this project. And she says, anything for Ruth. And so Denyce was on board. Then came, who's going to do it? What orchestra? What orchestra is going to be able to even think about doing this, and when?
Right.
And I just went here and there and there and here. And, you just have to, you have to be the fuller brush man. You have to go door to door. I've been doing these commissioning projects for
25 years.
25 years.
Wow.
That's
I know you go door to door.
I go door to door. 12, and we have technology to do it. I used to just cold call conductors, and I never had a problem, except maybe with one or two. But that's a pretty good track record.
That is a good track record.
I mean, hey, this is, and I say to the composers, this is not about me. I'm not trying to get work here. I mean, I could play Beethoven, I could play Grieg. I just see this as a much bigger duty. This isn't about me. And then I say to them, it's not about you either. Immediately, it puts us on a journey together where there's no ego involved.
That's right.
It's not what can I get from you and what can you get from me? How am I going to help his career? I mean, basically, I become the agent for the composer for that project. Mm-hmm. I don't charge a fee. I don't take a commission. I want to do this. And it's for something bigger than ourselves, for maybe a time that's beyond ours.
That's right.
And
a civic duty too, right?
Yeah, I mean, being a musician means different things to different people. I can't tell people, well, you should be doing this. You should be learning these pieces that I worked my butt off to raise money for, so you can just go out, learn it, and play it. You can't do that.
No.
And sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 decades for any piece or pieces to be picked up by somebody. It's like anything else. So that's what happened. And finally, I knew Kim Milton from Boston Pops, and she became CEO of the Dallas Symphony.
Mhm.
Such a great fit. Boy, they're lucky.
They are lucky.
Not only is she smart, she's kind, she's respectful, she's humble, and we have the same dreams. We're following the same journey, but on different yellow brick roads. And she gets it. I mean, she gets it. And she writes back, and she's just as great. And she was transitioning and just, with different projects. It was just a tough time. This was back in January. I get this huge long email from Peter Chorney, who just retired as the artistic administrator for the Dallas Symphony. And I knew Peter from his other orchestras. Yes, door to door. I bugged him. And quite frankly, I didn't care that I bugged him, because I thought he was really good at what he did. And I thought, even if he says, and this is just the rule of the land for me, even if people say no to you now, or they say no to you in 5 years, or they say no to you in 10 years, you're building a relationship.
That's right.
You're building relationships. That's what I'll never forget. There was a president at what was the ICM management. And, she was a very powerful figure. People were like, she was tough, but she had to be tough. She was competing with some of the other agencies. It was big stuff going on.
Yeah.
And the one thing she said to me, and I told her this later on after she retired, we maintained an email friendship. And I never told too many people that, but she, honestly, looking back, it's so funny. She kicked me out of the management because I was just wanting too much and being too pushy. And, okay. If you don't want to be part of the journey with me, okay, I'll do it myself. And, you have to have that mindset. You can't let anybody tell you no. And if they do, accept it.
That's right.
Make it part of the relationship. And then maybe the next thing they'll say, hey, that's kind of cool. It took years until I received that email from Peter Chorney. And Peter he was so positive about this, because Kim was. And it just seemed like, puzzle pieces. You can't force a piece to go into a puzzle. It just doesn't fit. No, I think it goes there. No, it doesn't. Stop jamming it in there.
Mm-hmm.
And just slide this one in. Oh, that's where it goes. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Ellen Taaffe Zwilich, Denyce Graves, Dallas, the women's project that Kim does. There's like, yeah, that works. So Peter wrote this beautiful email to me, and I was going to write back to him. I remember I was in the car, stopped, read it, and I pulled in front of a bagel store. And I just parked the car and I called him on the phone. And we had a lovely conversation. I said, Peter, some things, email's great, but sometimes you need to speak to somebody. You have to hear a voice. And I want to thank you for your email, because it was just really beautiful. Let's see how we could make this happen together. And he told me what plans they have and where maybe he could sandwich it in, and what then this and that. And then finally, he said, we can make this happen, and we will give X amount toward the commission. And I had to get the rest. And I did. I mean, even to the last hour, I did.
Wow.
People really, because I knew what Ellen's fee was, and her manager is an elder statesman in this, and he stuck to his guns. And you know what? I don't like to say, well, will you take this? Ellen's great. And I will be honest. And she said, Jeffrey, see what you could do. I'm going to say, I'm going to fight to the finish. I mean, I don't want to have to say I only have, because it also sets a precedent for other commissions.
That's right.
Say, well, the word gets out. You took that from it. I don't want to put her in that position, or any composer. So I got it, and it was all done. And as I do with all commissioning projects, I treat them like buying a car. If you don't have the money in the bank, stay out of the showroom.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go signing for a car. You can't sign a commissioning agreement unless you have the money, number one. Then you have to have all the protections for yourself and the composer and the piece and everybody in order. and schedule of payments. So that's another, so every commissioning agreement is a little different, but they basically spell out the same truths. So we got to that point in like February. We couldn't announce it, don't announce anything yet. And the orchestra was like, don't say anything yet. You got to sign. I said, I know. So it took time. Everything takes time. And it took me a long time to realize that. And I think what I was saying in the beginning about the president who was at ICM management, it's now called Opus 3. It's still a powerful agency.
Yeah.
And she said to me, make friends in the business.
Yeah.
And first I was young. I was like 24. I thought, well, how do I do that? And aren't you supposed to get the work because you're the management? The things we think about when we're just still in a conservatory of music or graduating or winning competitions, it's not that we think it's all about me. It's, I have to do these necessary steps. I have to study at the school. I have to have a good teacher. I have to win some competitions. I have to really, pay my dues. Well, everybody does that in different ways. And then you think, well, I made a New York debut. I got a great review. I've won competitions. I'm with this big management. I made it.
You wish.
Well, you just got up to bat.
That's
now
right.
You're holding a bat in your hand. Now you have to do first. You have to get to first base, then second, then third, and a home run.
That's right. Endless hoops.
Not that way. And it's the mindset that we've all had. This is that. Oh, great. The manager's going to come and say, hey, can you play Saint-Saëns second concerto with this orchestra on that date? Here's the fee. Will you accept it? We think you should, Yeah. You think that's just the way it's going to happen week after week. You're going to pile up a whole schedule of concerts. It doesn't work that way.
No.
And usually for the young artists, I remember back then, there was some prodigy string players, and it's wonderful. People are like, wow, look at that kid. She can play the Tchaikovsky concerto. She's only 10. Yeah. That's great. It's exciting. Can they sustain that for 50 years? Hard to say. So just even winning a competition, these are all good things, but sustaining and maintaining a career is another story. So the management has to become your friend. You can't make it like you expect them to wave a wand and make a whole life for you.
Right.
In any business, and this is advice I give to kids too, in any business, you have to work for it. You have to, my teacher was Adele Marcus, and she was a powerhouse. And she would say, we make our own careers, dear. I think it's important to follow that yellow brick road and see what's coming along your way that you can cultivate that fits your puzzle. So after all these years, the Ginsburg project meant something to me because I felt I was at a point in life where, well, years ago, I don't know if I would have had the guts to take a political figure. Yes, she was a political figure, but she was a governmental figure. Mm-hmm. And she was on the Supreme Court. And she had mindsets and ideas that she believed in.
Yeah.
And, as you go further away in time, you start to separate. Was it a Republican? Was it a Democrat? Was it the left and the right? It all boils down to human rights of people to survive and to live that ever so brief life that we're given. And I felt that she represented that. She was friends with Judge Scalia. I mean, they were both, they learned to love each other and work for the things that they believed in, but be friends about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh, what a lesson to be learned from them. And I felt that was an important thing, but I thought it was a good time to make music out of this. So alongside this work that Dallas has become part of, shortly right after that, I was, or it may have been actually a little before that, I was getting very kind of down. I was like, where is this all going, Mm-hmm. And my wife said to me, why don't you just go write some music? I said, Nah. I can't. I'm not a composer who has to work at it every day to make a living. It was kind of like a thing I like to do because, like when I wrote the Waltzes of Hope, I just felt this magnetism to go to the piano and get it out of my system through music. And so, like what everybody does, you know, they say, well, maybe there's some truth to it. So I went to the piano. I didn't know what to do. And I thought, the names, because I'm not like a songwriter that can sit down and just, I'm going to write every day something and I'll write 800 songs and 3 of them will make me a millionaire. I'm not like that.
Right.
And I started thinking about the names. And somebody told me later on, well, Robert Schumann did that, took the letters of the names and made, you know, Carnival out of it. I didn't even think of that. Honestly, it wasn't even in my subconscious or anything. And I thought, a musical alphabet, why not? RBG, what notes are those? So I went to the piano and wrote down a scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then when I got to A again, I made that H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. And I went right through the scale. It could have been A natural, it could have been A flat, it could be A sharp, whatever. I tried to figure out from that musical scale of the alphabet, I wrote down R, B, G, R, U, T, H, B, A, D, E, R, G, I, N, S, B, U, R, G. I just wrote the notes in 3 placements on the staff for each one. I started trying to hear things in my head. I changed the beginning. RBG is the first 3 notes of the piece. And that goes for a few lines, then Ruth, then Bader, then Ginsburg, and then it's all over the place. So I wrote Reflection of Justice. And that's what I'll be playing with Dallas Symphony right after Ellen's piece with Denyce.
Oh my goodness.
That's like, I'm going to actually play a piece I wrote last year for solo piano with orchestra. I don't know. I did what Gershwin kind of did. He took Rhapsody in Blue and he says, all right, clarinet here, this one here, that one here. He didn't know, he gave it to Fruity Grofé and he mapped it out.
Right.
I kind of did that with this piece because one of my students who just graduated with a master's degree in piano performance, Harrison Scheckler, he's now studying at the University of Arizona in Tucson for his DMA. He got a really good package there. And he did an incredible video right after we were locked down, You'll Never Walk Alone. If you see this, it's quite incredible. It got over 1 million views very quickly.
Oh, I'll check it out immediately.
And he got all the kids at Brooklyn College in the orchestra and then the chorus and everywhere, and people from other countries, and compiled this incredible You'll Never Walk Alone video on YouTube. Then he did something with the ball game, Take Me Out to the Ball Game. He's a baseball fanatic.
The Richard Rodgers. Wow.
So he did all that. And then he started doing things for other orchestras. And I said, would you like to orchestrate this? He says, I'd love to. Boy, did he do a great job. And we needed an audio demo. So another one of my students who's now starting his 2nd year with me in piano performance, Chinese boy, Ji Chen, he uses Logic and he does game music. He writes game music by himself. He improvises. I thought, who better than you to make an audio demo of this? Would you do it? He says, yeah. And he did, based on Harrison's score. And it was pretty good in the beginning. I said, no, we have to line this one, we have to line that up. And then we're doing these nightly meetings on Messenger. And I said to Harrison, yeah, maybe we should knock that out. The rhythms, you want to knock that out of that part, that up. We don't need that there. And we were hearing what Ji Chen was creating. And Ji Chen was getting very good. Is this good? Is this okay? The more we did it, the sharper his hearing got and the better it got. Better. In the end, he said he listened to the first version he delivered and the last, and he couldn't believe the difference. I said, this was a lesson in raising your bar as a composer, in audio engineering, and in listening. You know, sometimes we hear things, but we don't listen. Sometimes we see things, but we don't really look at them. These are things that Del Marcus taught me. She used to say those things. And so that really helped him as a musician too. And so we have that, and that is what will be performed in October.
So you guys built your own Yellow Brick Road together.
Well, yeah.
You know,
And what happened as a result then is in July this year, I got bit by the bug to write more. Don't know why. So I wrote a piece called Reflection of Equality for Martin Luther King. And it's also based on all the letters of his name. And then I put Amazing Grace in there. I wanted it to be like the marches that he took, the spiritual marches for freedoms and equality. So Amazing Grace is in there, and I coupled that with all the letters of his names. In the Ginsburg piece, I took just one snippet of the Star Spangled Banner and put that as a main climax, the first climax with all her names. The second climax is big arm chords. I needed big sounds in the piano. I used the like that. And somebody said to me, that's like the gavel.
Oh, cool.
Said, yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. Two big chords like that. So I wrote the MLK piece, and then I thought I need one more. Reflection of Freedom. John F. Kennedy. That was my wife's idea, John F. Kennedy. I said,
wow.
Oh. So I wrote that, and then I said to Harrison, I think we have a concerto. So he is now orchestrating the other two pieces, and it's going to be a 3-movement concerto, three reflections. Wow. So I'm trying to see about where that'll get premiered. So the Ginsburg project grew out of the year of isolation and the passings of people, and I tried to turn negatives into positives.
Bravo.
And you know, we really have no choice. It's, you know, sink or swim. Yeah. And people don't want to hear your problems. They don't want to hear, oh, I'm so sorry, you know, or you don't have your concerts. What are you going to do? So that's what happened.
That's so brilliant. I mean, I've been telling people.
It's not brilliant. It's called survival of the fittest. Honestly, it's really, it's not. It's just soul searching and just, as my mother would say, let go and let God.
No,
you have no choice.
You have no choice. And I'm glad you put it that way, because so many artists were coming to me with this, I'm depressed, I don't know what to do. It's just like, perform, do what you've always done. You don't stop performing. When I sang, I practiced 10 hours a day. Keep practicing, keep singing, find anyway, sing the male.
I mean, the other thing is aside the depression is just not performing, it's not making money. Right. And we live a kind of frugal existence. I mean, I'm not a millionaire from playing piano at all. Right. And we saved money. We didn't spend money on things we couldn't afford. Yeah. And I mean, I used to like to buy stuff and everything, but I learned you can't do that. You have to think ahead, because life throws you turns. And the Yellow Brick Road's got some, winged monkeys thrown at you by the Wicked Witch.
Lots of them.
And you have to be able to deal with that. And there's always people that are going to come at you, like this. Yeah. And, you just have to remain healthy-minded, and you have to, take toxicity and push it away if you want to survive. You can't let that happen from anywhere, anyone, whatever it is. You have to be, I mean, people ask me, what are the things that are most important? What gets you through these things? I mean, I have not had a rosy Yellow Brick Road where people would just call me and say, you want to play this, you want to play that, and make big money. It's not like that. It's not like that.
That's not our world.
It's not our world. You have to come up with projects and things that are important, things that you think can create opportunities for performance, but that are important to others. Not just because I'm playing Prokofiev 3 with the Philadelphia Orchestra and I'm getting paid this fee. It's over. Okay, you play it, it's over. It's like a nice meal. You pay a lot, it's over. Yeah. But I think the most important things are respect, integrity, being grateful, kindness, and not to be selfish, entitled, or empowered. And, that's so toxic. Yikes. And if you let that become part of you, or you have to work around it or work with that, you can't become creative or positive minded, and you get depressed.
It's the opposite of creative, that
It is
mindset.
so opposite. And I think that then you can't create things for others, for the betterment of the world or society. I mean, that's basically what it is. So we have to just embrace what we have and be grateful and just go day to day, one day at a time. My mother always says, one day at a time.
You can only live one at them, you know.
And that's what it is. So, I mean, I used to say, I'm not doing these projects anymore. I can't do it anymore. Yet it just it comes right out of the woodworks. It's there. It says, you got to do this. I'm like,
I know that 5 years from now, we're going to be having a discussion about more of your projects. I'm sure of it.
You just go where life takes you. I mean, I just have no clue. I mean, we'll see. We'll see where things are. And hopefully we could do this again. So
we will.
We will.
Because now my mind is blown and I'm going to have to process this wonderful conversation, which I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
Me too. And I think that the year of COVID also helped chill us out. So
that's true.
To soul search and find out what's important to us and where we are and where we're going to go with it. Well, let's hope people in the Dallas area come to the Meyerson October 7. You'll hear Ellen Taaffe Zwilich remembering Ruth Bader Ginsburg with me and Denyce Graves and the orchestra and some other pieces on there Denyce is doing, and the premiere of my Reflection of Justice for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which will end up being this part. Yes, will be the second movement of the 3-movement concerto eventually.
Excellent.
And there we are.
Bravo, sir. Just keep going. You keep going.
We shall. You too. And thank you for this. Good to see you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.